Billionaire walks in and sees Maid crying. What he did shocked everyone. The mansion was supposed to be quiet at this hour. But the moment Ethan Cross pushed the door open, he heard something he had never heard from his security staff before. Crying. Not just crying. Sobbing. Ethan froze, one hand still gripping the cold brass of the front door handle. He didn't blink, didn't breathe. Crying? Inside his home? The Cross mansion never echoed with emotion. It was built on order, discipline, silence. The kind of silence that spoke money, spoke control, spoke walls too thick for anything messy to enter. But this was raw. He stepped forward slowly, the measured weight of his Italian leather shoes tapping on the marble. The chandelier's cold glow stretched his shadow along the pristine white floor. The sobbing grew louder, not loud enough to be a scream, not soft enough to be accidental, broken, shaky, struggling. Who's in here? Ethan muttered under his breath, brows folding. No one was supposed to be inside except the night security team. And they were trained, emotionless, stoic, disciplined. Something was wrong. He moved deeper into the mansion, past the curving grand staircase and the polished black and gold portraits of his ancestors staring down at him like silent judges. His hand instinctively hovered near his suit jacket, where a small, sleek weapon was usually holstered. But tonight he wasn't armed. Tonight he hadn't expected trouble. The sobbing pulled him toward the east corridor, the service hallway the staff used, narrow and dim, almost invisible from the main hall. "Hello," Ethan called, voice low, firm. No answer, just a choked inhale, followed by another quiet, heart-wrenching sob. He reached the end of the hallway and stopped. A door was slightly open. A faint light spilled out. He pushed it. Inside the small service lounge, usually empty, bland, only used for short breaks, sat a woman, crouched on the floor, hands covering her face, shoulders shaking. And she was wearing his staff uniform. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Hey," he said carefully, stepping inside. "Look at me." The woman flinched like she'd been struck. I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, voice trembling as if she had fought too long and lost too many battles. "I'll leave. I didn't mean to be seen." Ethan's eyes narrowed. Something about her voice tugged at a memory. "Look at me," he repeated quietly. She slowly lifted her face, and Ethan blinked. A young black woman, maybe 24, 25, deep brown skin, eyes swollen red from crying, uniform dirty like she had been working hours past her shift. He had never seen her before. And as someone who memorized every employee, that meant only one thing. "You're new," Ethan said. She nodded quickly, wiping her cheeks. "First week, and you're crying in my house." I'm sorry," she whispered again. "It won't happen again. I'll leave right now if you want." Ethan didn't answer immediately. Something didn't sit right. No rookie staff member cried like this unless something terrible had happened. "What's your name?" "Naomi," she whispered. "Naomi Ellis." "All right, Naomi," Ethan said softly. "Tell me why you're crying." She shook her head violently. "I can't. I shouldn't." She stood up too fast, too scared, and winced as if one leg hurt. Ethan's attention snapped to it instantly. "What happened to your leg?" "Nothing. I tripped." "Tripped?" His gaze sharpened. "Or someone pushed you?" She froze. That was an answer. Naomi's breathing turned shallow. Her eyes darted away toward the floor, like she was afraid the walls themselves might snitch on her. "Who was on duty tonight?" Ethan asked slowly. She swallowed. "Mr. Dean, Mr. Keller, Mr. Morris." Ethan felt a cold rush spread down his spine. 3 men, security guards he handpicked. "Did one of them do something to you?" he asked, voice dangerously calm. Naomi didn't move, didn't speak, just held her breath. Ethan stepped closer. "You don't have to protect anyone," he said quietly. "Not in my house." Her lips trembled. "It's not. They didn't. You shouldn't get involved," she stuttered. They said I'd lose my job if I spoke." Ethan's jaw locked. "Lose your job? For what?" Her voice cracked. "For trying to stop them." Ethan's heartbeat slammed hard once, twice. "Stop them from what?" Naomi hesitated, fear twisting her expression. "You need to leave," she whispered suddenly. "Please." They said, "If you came home early, if you saw..." Ethan's blood chilled. "Saw what?" She squeezed her eyes shut. "I tried to stop them, Mr. Cross," she whispered, trembling. "I tried. I swear I tried." His voice deepened. "Naomi, tell me what is happening in my house." She choked. "They're upstairs." Ethan's breathing stilled. Upstairs, where his most private rooms were, where no one not even senior staff, was allowed after hours. What are they doing upstairs? Naomi's voice dropped to a small, broken whisper. They weren't supposed to use your room, but they did, for almost an hour. And when I told them to leave, they pushed me. They told me I was nothing. They said they'd make me regret speaking up. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Ethan didn't move. Something inside him, something cold and violent, stirred awake. Where? Ethan whispered, "Are they right now?" "Top floor," she whispered. "Your personal lounge." Ethan inhaled once, a deep, steadying breath. "Come with me," he said. Naomi's eyes widened. "No, please. They'll hurt you. They have." Ethan lifted a hand, stopping her. "Naomi." His voice dropped like a blade through silence. "No one hurts me in my own house." He stepped past her, heading toward the hallway. Naomi grabbed his sleeve weakly. "Mr. Cross, please don't. They're not alone either. There's someone with them." He stopped. "Someone? Who?" he asked. She hesitated painfully. "A woman," Naomi whispered. I didn't see her face, but she looked like she knew exactly what they were doing, like she planned it. Ethan's eyes narrowed. A woman, in his private floor, with his guards, doing something he wasn't supposed to see. His stomach sank. Describe her. Tall, young, white, wearing a red dress. Ethan's breath left him. Slow, quiet, dangerous. Red, he repeated. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Naomi said. Bright red, like she wanted to be noticed. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. He had seen that dress before. Only one woman he knew wore it. The one woman who should never be in his house without him. His ex-fiancée, Delilah Hart. A slow, controlled storm formed behind his ribs. Naomi stepped back, fear trembling through her voice. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have said anything. Please don't fire me." Ethan turned to her. "I'm not firing you," he said softly. She looked confused. "You're not." "You warned me," he said. "You showed courage when 3 trained men tried to silence you." His voice softened, unexpected warmth flickering through it. "And you didn't walk away even when you were hurt." Her eyes filled again, not from fear this time. "Come," Ethan said calmly, extending his hand. "You're not staying alone down here. Whatever is happening upstairs, I'm ending it." Naomi's hand shook as she placed it into his. "Stay behind me," Ethan instructed, "and stay close." They walked out of the lounge together. The mansion felt colder now, too still, like it was holding its breath. The climb up the stairs was slow, deliberate, soundless. Ethan's expression carved into stone. Naomi limping behind him but refusing to stop. Halfway up, Naomi whispered, "Mr. Cross?" "Yes." What if they're dangerous?" Ethan didn't stop walking. His voice came out low, controlled, icy. "Naomi." "Yes." "They should be afraid of me." She swallowed. He meant it. Every step closer to the top floor felt heavier, the air thicker, the tension sharper. Naomi clutched the railing. Ethan stopped at the second landing and looked back at her. "You don't have to come any further," he said gently. She shook her head fiercely. "No, I saw something wrong happening in your home. I won't let you face it alone." Ethan stared at her for a long second. This woman, new, terrified, injured, had more loyalty than all 3 of his guards combined. "All right," he said quietly. "Stay behind me, no matter what." They reached the final flight of stairs. At the top, a faint light seeped beneath a closed door. His private lounge. Voices floated through the crack. Low, laughing. Naomi stiffened. Ethan's jaw clenched. He reached for the door handle. Naomi whispered, barely breathing, "Are you ready?" Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. He pushed the door open. And everything changed. The mansion was still, the kind of still that felt fragile, almost unnatural. Ethan crossed in the grand hallway, the echoes of Delilah's shrieks and the heavy footsteps of the removed guards fading into memory. Naomi was close beside him, her back straight but shoulders tense, her eyes wide as if trying to process everything she had just witnessed. The air smelled faintly of polished wood, warm sunlight spilling to the large arched windows, glinting off the marble floors. It was beautiful but cold, and Ethan didn't notice the beauty at all. All he could see was her. "You really gone?" Naomi whispered, barely audible, her hands twisted nervously in front of her, fingers fidgeting with each other. "Yes," Ethan said, voice steady but low, a calm edge beneath the control. "They won't be coming back. Not today. Not ever again." Naomi's gaze fell to the floor, her lips trembling slightly. I didn't want to cause trouble," she admitted. I just wanted to do my job." to do things right. Ethan turned to her, kneeling slightly so that his eyes could meet hers. The raw anger he had felt toward Delilah and the men who had humiliated and hurt her had subsided into something more complex. Protective, thoughtful, careful. "Naomi," he said quietly, "you caused nothing. You were brave tonight. You spoke the truth when no one else would. That's not trouble, that's courage." Her lips quivered, a single tear threatening to fall. "I didn't feel brave," she murmured. "Bravery isn't the absence of fear," Ethan said gently. "It's doing what's right even when you are afraid. And you did that. You acted with integrity when no one else had the courage to. That's more than most people could manage." Naomi swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. She wasn't used to someone recognizing her strength, someone seeing her. And when she looked up at him, there was a flicker of something she had never allowed herself before. Relief, recognition, safety. "Let's get you checked," Ethan said after a pause, straightening his back. "You've been hurt. We need to make sure you're okay." She hesitated, uncertain. "You don't need to do this. I can manage." "You don't get to decline," he interrupted softly, almost tenderly. "Not this time. You've suffered enough, and someone needs to make sure you're taken care of. I will do it." Her throat tightened. She wanted to argue, but couldn't. There was an authority in his calm voice that brooked no denial. Instead, she nodded. Ethan led her to the guest wing, an area of the mansion reserved for visitors and important guests. Naomi's steps were tentative, every movement careful, as though she feared the world might collapse around her. The sunlight filtering through the windows painted golden streaks on the floor, highlighting the contrast between the opulence of the room and the fragility she felt inside. This is far too nice for me," she whispered as they entered a softly lit sitting area, plush chairs and velvet curtains framing the space. "You deserve it," Ethan replied quietly. "You've earned your rest." Naomi's shoulders sagged as she let herself settle into one of the chairs. "No one has ever said that to me before," she admitted, almost in a whisper. Ethan crouched in front of her, opening the small medical kit he had brought with him. "We'll start by making sure your bruises aren't serious. You may have more than you think." Naomi's eyes widened at the sight of the kit. I don't want to trouble you further." "You're not a trouble," he said firmly. "You're a human being who's been hurt. I don't need reason. I need facts, and the fact is, you've been injured." Her lips pressed together, and she lowered her gaze as Ethan gently began to examine her arms. The bruises were worse than she had let on, purple and red splotches, finger marks, evidence of violence. Her arm shook slightly under his hands, but she didn't pull away. "Who did this to you?" he asked softly, though he already knew. The footage he had reviewed told the full story, but seeing the physical proof drove the anger deeper. They were supposed to keep the mansion safe," she said quietly, her voice breaking. I didn't want anyone to think I was exaggerating." "You did nothing wrong," Ethan said. "You never did." Naomi's lips trembled, and she looked away. I've never had anyone protect me like this." "You will from now on," he said, meeting her gaze. "I promise." The following days were a blur of quiet adjustments. Security protocols were rewritten, staff reassured, and the mansion staff were reminded that any form of abuse or intimidation would not be tolerated. Delilah's influence had been erased from the state. The guards who had tormented Naomi were gone, barred from returning. And yet, through it all, Naomi carried herself with a newfound grace, careful, quiet, but stronger than before. Ethan observed her from a distance. His presence felt rather than imposing. He watched her interactions with other staff, noting how she smiled more, how she moved through her duties with confidence, no longer cowering at sudden sounds or unexpected touches. She was healing, not just physically, but emotionally, and he felt a growing sense of responsibility for her well-being. One morning, as sunlight spilled across the grand hallway, Ethan found Naomi in the garden. She was seated on a stone bench beneath a sprawling oak, her arms folded lightly across her chest, eyes lost in the distant horizon. She looked up as he approached, startled. "You're healing well," he said softly. Naomi's lips curved into a tentative smile. "Thanks to you." He shook his head almost imperceptibly. "No, it's not thanks. You're healing because you're strong. I'm just here to make sure no one tries to break that." She blinked, unprepared for the intensity behind his words. "I've never had someone care like this before," she whispered. "You will," he said, his tone quiet but resolute. "From now on, you'll always have someone who cares, someone who protects you." Naomi's cheeks flushed lightly. Her lips parted as she tried to form a response, but no words came. She simply nodded, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his eyes. Ethan remained with her for a long while, standing quietly at her side, letting the warmth of the late morning sun bridge the silence. There were no grand words, no proclamation, just presence, steady, unwavering, protective, caring. As the days passed, the slow rhythm of the mansion resumed, but it was different now. The halls, once echoing only discipline and order, now carried whispers of trust and safety. Naomi moved freely, no longer a frightened presence in the vast estate. She worked, she rested, she smiled, and Ethan noticed every small change: the lift of her shoulders, the ease in her step, the quiet confidence that had begun to replace the anxiety he had seen on her first day. He found himself checking on her more often, not out of obligation, not as a task, but out of a desire to ensure her well-being. Every small gesture, a cup of tea, a brief word in passing, a nod of reassurance, was deliberate, silent, and meaningful. One evening, as golden light spilled across the marble floors of the grand hallway, Ethan encountered Naomi walking back from her duties. She looked up at him, hesitated, and then smiled softly. He returned the smile, a quiet, warm acknowledgement of everything that had transpired between them. No words were necessary. For the first time, the mansion felt like a home. The walls no longer carried echoes of fear or oppression. It carried warmth. It carried trust. And within that warmth, a bond between Ethan and Naomi had begun to grow, slowly, quietly, without force, but with undeniable strength. Naomi understood that she was no longer invisible. Ethan knew, for the first time in years, that he was not alone. And in the grand halls of the mansion, beneath the sweeping staircases and glittering chandeliers, amidst the echoes of wealth and discipline, something delicate but profound had begun: hope. The trust, the care, and the quiet affection between them were just beginning. Neither rushed it, neither forced it. They allowed it to grow naturally, each shared glance, each quiet moment, each protective action laying a foundation for what could one day become more than mere respect. The mansion was finally at peace, its silence no longer cold or hollow, but filled with the quiet possibility of healing, connection, and beginnings. And in that peace, both Ethan and Naomi realized, sometimes protection is a first step to something much deeper.